rehearsal to take the tension away. You can do it now, it's just a retake. Whole program. Right. 20. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
We'll come back to that in a moment. First, let's pick up where we left off last time. A group of second-year children from Shoreditch School composed a sound picture based on ideas associated with heat, radiation, relentlessness, intensity, stillness. Before we hear the piece again, I'd like to ask Brian Dennis, who's in charge of the music at the school, about the musical ideas behind the piece. Brian, can you tell us, please?
Well, we have a central idea, which is heat. And so, to correspond with this, we have a central sound. I gave the children their central sound, and in the case of this piece, this was a high organ cluster. Now, all the other sounds in the piece are subordinate to this sound. In other words, they either imitate it, approximate to the same pitch range, or have a similar tone color. The piece was in fact composed by the players themselves. They decided everything in rehearsal and listening to tapes of the rehearsal. We decided on the order that they should enter, the way the instrument should come in. We also decided how the instruments would gradually fade away. Everything that happens in the central portion of the piece can vary from one performance to the next.
This group are very aware of the qualities of sounds. These are chosen imaginatively and arranged with sensitivity. And there's obvious discrimination in knowing when and where to play and when and where not to play. Clearly, there must have been considerable preparation before this kind of group composition could emerge. Brian, will you tell us something about the preparatory work you do to produce this sort of advanced composition?
Well, I've developed a form of improvisation, in actual fact, which gives the class a certain amount of experience in listening to these noises. The improvisation is controlled by a central conductor, and this isn't always myself. It starts off this way, but every member of the class usually has a chance in the end of being the conductor, who of course then controls the improvisation. He has to be aware of all the different types of sound that we have available. And although this group that we have here today is only a small group, I do this with entire classes.
And you've got a variety of sounds available. I suppose they need to know what sort of sounds they are, wooden or metal.
One should always try and bear in mind the different timbre of the
Yes,
instrument,
yes.
whether it's wood, metal, as you say. Certainly.
Well, shall we see how it works?
I'll just remind you of the signs. We all know them, of course. And these are the ones we use in class. If I give you a single beat, like that, I want a single, short, sharp sound. If I do that, immediately after I've given you the beat sign, I want you to damp your instrument, if it's an instrument like yours, Martin, which is highly resonant. If I give you this sign, which is a policeman's halt sign, that doesn't mean halt, that means make a roll, a soft, continuous roll. And you mustn't stop until I give you the stop sign. In other words, whatever I do, even if I go out the room, you continue to make your soft roll until I come back and stop you. If I want you to get louder, I shall do that. Softer, I shall do that. Well, that's all there is to it for now. Let's have a go, shall we? Very good.
A natural extension of this approach is to use the tape recorder to add further colour and variety. Brian, I know you regard a tape recorder as an indispensable part of your musical apparatus.
More than that, it's a means of making a piece of music. A piece of music that doesn't, in fact, need conventional notation or notation of any kind whatsoever. My sixth formers are making pieces of this kind, and an improvisation like the one we're going to hear now is the kind of material that we use distorted in this way. Well, let's hear that back, shall we? Well, what we heard you play live just now has been distorted in a number of different ways, in several very complex ways. Let's demonstrate one or two of these taken separately, very simply. One of the common procedures we adopt is to speed the sound up. This is very simple. We record at one speed and we play it back at a faster speed. Now, we'll demonstrate this now. I shall make some sounds on the cymbal with a violin bow. The tape recorder will record these at one speed and then we'll play them back at another. Ready? Okay, let's hear that. Well, there's a very simple but effective technique. Another one that we use from time to time is just varying the volume of recording violently. And in this case, I'm going to make strokes on the cymbal. We're going to have the volume control on 0 when I actually strike the instrument, so that when the volume control is turned up, It just catches the resonance. Let's try that. Now that's going to sound considerably quieter, but let's hear it back. Well, that's a very interesting, very electronic sound. And we'll do one more improvisation. This time we'll have the xylophone and some bottles. And we'll add echo on the tape. We can do that with this machine. We'll add echo, we'll speed up the sounds, and we'll hear what it sounds like. And finally, let's hear that sound. Don't forget there's going to be some echo on our recording of it. Now, usually, when we're making a piece, we record far more material than we ever need. In fact, we make a considerable amount of material from which we then cut the best. And we splice this into a piece of music.
Much of this work can be done equally well with primary school children. In fact, in a school in southeast London, infants are introduced to this use of the tape recorder in their activity periods.
Some wood sounds. Now, Faye, would you like to take the sticks off there and play the sticks behind Yvonne? Do you like to play the coconut shells? Go and find the coconut shells. Oh, you want to play the coconut shells? Go on, you play the coconut shells then. And you, no, recorder's not a wood sound. Now, Ricky, where are you going to point the mic for the wood sounds? Look where they are. Now, you won't want it too near, will you? Put it back. Now, don't put it on top of the set. That's not a good thing. Put it, that's it. Now, if you've got it steady, John, I think if I were you, I should stand a tiny bit further back because the coconut shells make a lot of noise. Are you ready? You can play just what you like, and then we'll see what wood sounds sound like. Ready to record, Ricky? Right. The children in this school have a great variety of creative experiences musically, and we do try to make sure that the music is part of activity. All children are very interested in tape recorders, televisions, radios. In fact, that is nearer their experience than are a great many nursery rhymes. Creative tape recording teaches them self-discipline because they soon realise that if they talk at the wrong time, it spoils somebody else's work. That's it. Now, we're going to take it off this little recorder and put it on the big one, so you'll have to spin it right back. If we want to hear the sounds we've made, we must put it on at 3 3/4, mustn't we? Do you think that's a better volume? Not quite so loud. Now, this is the sounds as you made them. Now, John, turn it down one so it goes slower. Turn it down. Now, listen. Listen. it up to the speed it was, John, 3 3/4. See? Now, Yvonne, you turn it so that it's quicker. Turn it right up to 7 1/2. Try. Oh, that's somebody talking, isn't it? Turn it right down to the bottom.
This one?
Yes, that way round. Right down to the bottom. What's that? Listen.
That goes. This goes as fast as that.
Yes, that goes. If we turn the volume up a bit, listen. What do you think that is? What do you think? I think it is a monster, don't you? I do find that it's quite possible to have a small group in a corner doing this work while other children get on with other activities. If they want to record anything rather special or want real quiet, they can always find some kind of place where they can go and do it on their own. In this particular work, I did suggest that they might like to think of astronauts going round the moon. John wrote a story, but you will see that he doesn't mention it, but he has got some sort of idea. It's rather like throwing a stone into a pool and seeing what happens to the ripples.
John, you play the drum. Faye, you play the telephone. And Yvonne, you blow the bubbles. And Debbie, you do the water.
Here's part of John's story with space music by the children.
One day I went in a rocket. It went up and up and up, and the gravity was trying to pull the rockets back, but the rockets were too powerful, and the Earth's gravity was pulling my skin back, but I was soon out of the Earth's gravity. The fuel ran out, so I had to land. It was the planet's galaxy. I checked to see if there was any air, but there was not any, so I put my helmet on and opened the capsule door and looked around.
The children are recording music for the appearance of the monster.
There were high rocks and mountains. I set off to explore, and I saw a monster. It was very strange. It had brown eyes. It was all pink. It had very sharp claws. It had a tongue like a snake, and I aimed at it, and it ran at me. Then I shot at it, and it fell to the ground, and I guessed it was about 17 meters tall.
That music was made up by the infants by mixing live sounds with recorded sounds. Now let's see the same sort of thing at a secondary level. Here is the score of a composition made by, in fact, the girl who is going to be controlling and conducting the group. certainly contains some very intriguing sounds and instruments. I have with me here in the studio Roy Cooper from the school. Roy, you had some very odd instruments. What was that curious thing that you played with a sort of bandaged finger?
Well, that was a development of this. Here is a multivibrator, the basic tone-forming circuit found in electronic organs.
I see.
And here are the keys with which you pitch it. Now, what you actually saw was one of these keys enlarged on a block of wood and then activated by metal foil wrapped around the finger and touching it.
And this tape loop you had going, it looks to me a rather simple sort of tape deck. Is there some trick with this?
No, it is a very simple one, a very cheap one. The advantage of this model being that it alters the speed of the tape by putting on these little capstans here. So we had a number of these made of different diameters, and this altered the speed of the tape to anything we wished, thus altering the pitch of the sound.
I see, so basically it's a very cheap one-speed machine, and you've made it play by a simple device at very many speeds indeed.
Yes.
Good. I also saw that you were, at least one of your children was bowing a sheet of metal, and that this seemed to be amplified through perhaps the tape recorder. Can you show how this works?
Yes, as you say, just an ordinary simple sheet of metal hung on wire with a lapel microphone attached here and here. Now these pick up the minute sounds which occur in the metal as soon as it's touched. You can buy these at radio shops very cheaply for a few shillings.
Do you make sort of bizarre, strange noises just for the sake of it, or do you think there's some sort of educational value to be had from this work for the children?
Well, the children do have bizarre noise-making sessions as play, but I think this is quite a valuable experience. But they soon learn that once they get used to the sounds, they need some other form of organisation if they're going to get more enjoyment. So naturally they progress to electing a leader, a conductor, and they find there's some need for notation of a sort, so they invent one, and they've progressed then from play to composition without actually being taught.
Finally, let's hear part of a discussion that went on when the class were preparing some music for improvised drama, which was later filmed. This drama was based on an inscription the children had seen on a tombstone in the local churchyard. From this, the children themselves have built up a legend, which they act, and for which they've composed the music.
Yes, we've got a problem here. Somebody's speaking with instruments playing at the same time. Now, what are you going to do if the voice isn't loud enough?
Having more people speaking and quieting down the instruments.
Yes. Or one person shouting louder, that would do it. Which effect do you want, you see? One shouting loudly or a lot of people speaking quietly?
Sir, a lot of people speaking, sir.
Yes.
No, I think that would be better.
Well, shall we try some of the music that's going to be played at the same time? Have you got that crowd one there? Come on, let it run.
Sir, there's another one what we've got of a crowd with this one. That one, no, it's that one.
Well, let's
He
try
likes
both.
that best,
Pick the best. Go on, put it on, let's hear it. I think these will be quite good. Up the chin, riding up. There now. Do you think that sounds exactly the same as the other? It doesn't, does it?
No, that one's more angry.
I was thinking that. Yes, it's
Sounds
angry.
more angry.
Now, is that the effect you want?
Yes.
More anger? Well, shall we keep that one and not have the other one then? Try it again, just to make sure.
I'd rather have the other one.
This one is angry.
What makes it sound angry, do you think?
It's more faster.
Higher pitch as well, isn't it? Higher pitch, yes. More angry. Well, let's keep that anyway. But we'll remember that sounds more angry than the other. Now, what sort of sound is it that you want?
Sir is going to have some kind of running, low or medium pitch.
Have a go then, see what you can get. That's okay. What about yours? Now you've got some
So,
on frame.
well, I was thinking that we could get quite a few of these sounds on the frame, sir.
Yes. Well, shall we try those now?
Yes.
Go on.
So I thought that we could use this one for the sound of the bell. So, and then there's the part of the people in the fast movement too.
It's okay, yes.
And then for the part where Roy says we're on the high and low pitch notes, we could draw a ball across the sluice.
Go on, have a try. See what you mean.
This stone was erected by the parish of Adwickler Street as a memorial of that severe pestilence, the cholera, which, in the month of July 1832, with a fearful suddenness, destroyed 5 of the inhabitants of Ampole.
Oh yay! Oh yay! Oh yay! Oh yay! Today in Adwick village, the burial of 3 men who has caught the disease cholera. Oh yay! Oh yay! Oh yay! Oh yay! Today in Adwick village, the burial of 3 men who has caught the disease cholera. Oh yay! I wonder what this dreadful disease could be.
I don't know, but whatever it takes to kill my child, the only child I've got, so...
Yes, and what about those 3 men's parents?
I'm not stopping it. I'm going to my aunt's. Who's coming?
Let me take your child.
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
We'll come back to that in a moment. First, let's pick up where we left off last time. A group of second-year children from Shoreditch School composed a sound picture based on ideas associated with heat, radiation, relentlessness, intensity, stillness. Before we hear the piece again, I'd like to ask Brian Dennis, who's in charge of the music at the school, about the musical ideas behind the piece. Brian, can you tell us, please?
Well, we have a central idea, which is heat. And so, to correspond with this, we have a central sound. I gave the children their central sound, and in the case of this piece, this was a high organ cluster. Now, all the other sounds in the piece are subordinate to this sound. In other words, they either imitate it, approximate to the same pitch range, or have a similar tone color. The piece was in fact composed by the players themselves. They decided everything in rehearsal and listening to tapes of the rehearsal. We decided on the order that they should enter, the way the instrument should come in. We also decided how the instruments would gradually fade away. Everything that happens in the central portion of the piece can vary from one performance to the next.
That was a rehearsal to take the tension away. You can do it now. It's just a retake. Whole program. Right. 20.